Hey there, everyone. It's Nick Dettmann here, and welcome again to my podcast. It's been a little bit since we last chatted, but wanted to get you on a couple things that are really kind of interesting developments in terms of social media and digital marketing that's taken place here over the last several weeks. So hopefully you've been able to follow some of those developments on my blog, and that's nicholasdettmann.blogspot.com. On that blog, you'll find a lot of opportunities to stay up on social media and digital marketing trends, the latest developments, and just little tips and so forth that can help you with your strategies, things that I've found useful for my own work, but also from research I've seen on how others have been able to use certain strategies and their successes. So hopefully you can have had chances to check out the blog, again, nicholasdettmann.blogspot.com. And if you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button, and you'll get the updates delivered right to your inbox each and every day. So I appreciate everybody that follows the blog, or subscribes to the blog, or follows me here on the podcast. I truly do appreciate your support. So with that in mind, we've got actually quite a bit here to cover, so we'll just jump right on into it. So recently I had a chance to sit in on a Facebook Live and a webinar or webcast featuring Michael Stelzner and socialmediatoday.com with his shows, which are great shows, by the way. If you get a chance to check those out, those usually air on Facebook as well as YouTube and the website as well. So really powerful stuff there too. So I highly suggest that material as well. So recently, in one of his shows, he hosted Mary Smith, a Facebook marketing expert, and they discussed some potential changes that are looming for Facebook, as well as indicating big shifts coming from the platform's Groups tool. To start the show, Smith and Stelzner talked about a new app that Facebook is working on called Bars. In short, it's an app that is aimed at music creators that's specifically with rappers. Now, the app would be an opportunity for collaboration among rap artists. It was asked on how this might differ from TikTok. Right now, it's kind of TikTok is more known for their lip syncing. With Bars, it is the user's own audio that's being used for this. So Smith said this is likely not something that marketers can maybe take a lot of advantage of, but it just shows the steps that Facebook is trying to take to solidify itself in the future and get people away from other platforms such as TikTok. So that's a little interesting. Certainly be interested to see how that continues to develop. But I thought the biggest discussion point from that show was kind of talk about the future of Facebook groups. And some data was presented I thought was very, very interesting, and something I think bears a little further discussion and observation as it continues to evolve as a tool on Facebook. 1.8 billion people use Facebook groups monthly. They also said there are 70 million Facebook group moderators, and then more than 50% of people on Facebook are in 5 or more groups, myself included. I know I can't think of how many I'm in. I'd have to estimate I'm in at least 20, 30 of them. And I'm certainly a moderator for several of them. One of the things that I think makes groups well is really groups is kind of what social media started as, especially with Facebook. It's building a community of people with similar interests. And one of the positive things that you often see with groups is the lack of advertisements, or very little of it, and really lack of, lack of a better term, agenda pushings or political trolls, or just trolls in general. These are groups that have people, again, of similar interests and want to talk to other people that have the same interests they do. They want to share experiences, and that's really what Facebook started as, and what really is at the heart of what social media is all about and what it is good for. So Facebook has really done a great job in capturing that through groups, and we're starting to see more people gravitate towards groups rather than people looking at their own timelines, which have the advertisements and other things that we've come to not like on our Facebook feeds over the last couple years. Something that Stelzner said, and I completely agree with, is people are gravitating toward the groups more than the regular platform because people want to be part of a special group. And again, that goes back to what I just said about people wanting to feel involved in something special and something that they know they like and share a common interest with. So Facebook is really the leader in that category and in this method, and certainly other social media platforms are going to start trying to do that. So, and of course, the way Facebook is always shown is there's always ways to innovate and change and try to keep things fresh, and that's, I think, what they're going to try and do. What Mary Smith suggested was potential ad placements within groups, or you can recruit sponsorships for your group. So say if you have an interest say if you're a local business and you want to start a group and you want to put an advertisement behind your group. So I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head, and I'm coming up blank here, but maybe just kind of get a presenting sponsor of your group could be a way of generating a little revenue off of your group. Something else that may be coming on down the line in terms of Facebook groups as well is making them searchable in Google. Right now that's not the case, but that may change here in the coming weeks or months ahead. And then lastly, the thing Smith and Stelzner discussed was the vision of Facebook in 2020 by Mark Zuckerberg. This year, it seems, according to Smith, that Facebook and Zuckerberg are focused on 4 areas, and that's community, private messaging, e-commerce, and the next computer platform. Community certainly evident with what Facebook is looking at in terms of how to freshen up its groups tool. Private messaging has certainly been very important in terms of being able to maintain people's privacy. E-commerce, obviously, with its growth, just in general in the digital world, and then the next computer platform, just kind of getting an understanding of what might be next down the line. And then the last point that was brought up too, and I thought this was quite interesting and really kind of puts it into perspective of where social media is and what it needs to improve. And I think these groups is a way to maybe try and steer that. So the changes or potential changes with groups, like I said, is an indicator for Facebook and its goals regarding communities. Stelzner said about 40% of people right now do not trust Facebook and TikTok. That's a pretty alarming statistic if those are 2 platforms that you rely heavily on. So certainly you have to keep that in mind. And again, what I've always said is be understanding of your audience and what they like to do, where they like to go. Facebook is not the only solution or way to enhance your brand awareness. So really good conversation that Stelzner and Smith had, and it was something I very much enjoyed watching as well. Moving to the next topic is LinkedIn. I've always kind of seen LinkedIn, and it's really kind of been this way in general. That LinkedIn is a platform that really kind of takes a back seat to a lot of the social media platforms. And there are a lot of reasons for this, as I've noted previously, that it's a platform that tends to gear very heavily toward those who are have gotten education beyond high school, whether that's a 2-year junior college or tech school, a 4-year degree, or a master's degree, or even more of doctorate. Very seen it much as a professional outlet for people, and almost an online employment, free online employment tool as well. And over the years, LinkedIn has always been kind of in the back seat and kind of falling behind in terms of staying up on trends. But LinkedIn looks like they're trying to step up their game to make sure that they do stay relevant and that they don't get too far behind before they're forgotten. So a lot of things that LinkedIn has done is they've tried to adapt some of the similar changes that you've seen on other platforms, like the introduction of stories is definitely one indicator of that. That was something that was released several months ago. It's still kind of a work in progress. I haven't found it to be real useful up to this point, but I think it's just a matter of the people who use the platform just to kind of get used to it. And that's one thing I know I'm still trying to get used to, is just using the concept of stories. But But one thing that LinkedIn is also trying to do is help creators create the content that best suits the company or organization's needs, and doing so organically. So LinkedIn is doing a lot of things to try and help that. So they're trying to create tools for company pages, as well as offering content recommendations and lead gathering options. So there's a lot of that out there that LinkedIn has worked on, and there's more to that on my blog. So feel free to head on over to that part. So moving to the next topic, IQ Rival, which is a good social media or software company that specializes in social media analytics, released an in-depth social media benchmark report. And as you may have seen on my blog, and say, when I say in-depth, I meant it. It's 132 pages, and I've gotten through about 40 of them, so I'm still working through a lot of it. But a lot through those 40 pages really kind of been able to tell me a lot about where we're all at in social media and what things we should be keeping aware of. So here are some key points that I pulled from the report that I think needs to be mentioned. Is the median engagement of a post on Facebook is 0.08%. The median post per week on Facebook is 5.5. For Instagram, engagement is just under 1% at 0.98, and while posts per week is at about 4. And then Twitter engagement is at about 0.045%, which I've seen that's a little higher than what it has. I've seen it as low as 0.033%. And then Twitter posts per week is about 4.4. So it's a really good in-depth piece. If you have the time to take a look at it, I have the full reports on my blog as well. Again, nicholasdettmann.blogspot.com, where I've got that information, including the full 132-page report. Just gives you a lot of numbers and analysis about where we're at in Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, and other platforms, and how to gauge whether your efforts are successful, or if you need to do some tweaking to those. And we're going to move on here to the last topic, and that topic is going to involve, again, going back to Facebook. And I credit Hootsuite here for a recent blog post that certainly caught my attention recently. It reported about organic reach, and specifically with Facebook, and it is declining, and that's not really a surprise. But I think not really the surprise factor, but certainly worth noting is the rate at which it's dropping is certainly important, and it's because we're looking at Facebook and other platforms. There's more platforms out there than there used to be. So what Facebook is trying to do is get a little more relevancy in terms, and trying to get more people to commit some money behind their platforms. So according to the Hootsuite blog, the average reach for an organic Facebook post is down to 5.2%. And that's down just from 5.5% in 2019, but it was 7.7% in 2018. So a 2.5 points lower engagement for organic posts is just another indication of where Facebook wants what Facebook wants people to do, and that's put more money behind posts, and they want to get start trying to build back up some revenue. It's not to say that Facebook is struggling by any means, based on a lot of their end of the year reports that came out, that they certainly are not in dire issues in terms of their finances, but their popularity is certainly going down, and that's kind of why their organic reach is also going down. So if you're starting to see those numbers in your own data, it's not anything that you're doing. It's a national and international trend, and the challenge for us as marketers and social media marketers is how do we adjust to that? And we've talked about it a number of times here on this podcast, as well as through blog posts. Is you just got to be a little more creative, test your creative boundaries. I know it's something I'm certainly trying to get a better understanding of myself, and trying to challenge myself to get a little more creative in terms of our posts. For the organizations and clients that I have, and it's certainly challenging. It's not going to lie, it's not going to be easy, but I think if you continue to focus on engagement. What is going to capture people's attention? And more often than not, from what I've seen, is you put a personalization to a post. You put a face to it. You put a name to it. That often drives engagement. Like, for example, for one of the organizations I work for, Milwaukee Center for Independence, this month is National Nutrition Month. And one thing I decided to do is profile a couple of interns that work in one of the departments at Milwaukee Center for Independence, the food service. They're interns in diet with majors in dietary specialization in nutrition. And those that post got a very good engagement and very good reach. About I would say probably about 15-20% better than what I had been seeing up to this point through this year. But it was a picture and it was a little description of her. It was kind of I almost did it's like a Q&A format, which I know you typically don't really want to do, but I just had 3 questions, had her answer them, and then just posted it, and then shared a picture of hers that she had sent over, and it got great engagement, and it got a great following, and it had some of the best organic reach that we've had over the last several weeks. So that's just kind of an example of something that's worked for me that may be something you can consider as well. And also something that Hootsuite touched on in its blog post was talking more about Facebook being a lot more transparent in forms of how its algorithm is calculating how items appear in people's timelines. And normally, in the past, Facebook had been really hush-hush about that, but Facebook has decided to be a little more transparent about that. And if you can understand the lingo, it's great, but it kind of gives a general idea of what Facebook's computers are looking for and how they decide what goes in people's news feeds. So lots of really good content, and be sure you head over to my blog at nicholasdettmann.blogspot.com. You'll have all that information that we've had from the last couple of weeks, but wanted to bring those points to your attention because I thought those were very valuable tools, and hopefully you'll find some use from it. So in the meantime, I really appreciate everybody listening to the podcast here today, and continue to support the podcast. Certainly would love to hear feedback from you. You can follow me on Twitter, which is Dettmann, check that. It's Nick, Nick _Dettmann, Dettmann. I almost gave you the wrong Twitter handle there. I changed it several weeks ago, but still kind of trying to get used to it. Just let me know what you think. What do you like about it? What would you like me to discuss? And be sure to tell others about it. We'd really appreciate the support. And then, again, head over to the blog, subscribe to the blog so you get regular updates sent right to your inbox. So till next time, thanks so much for listening today. Take care, and we will talk to you again very soon. Have a good day.